So I have my watercolor set. I have water, watercolor paper, and I'm adding some water to the watercolor set. All right. So I'm going to massage this around so it'll activate the paint. The first thing I'm going to do is a wash. So I'm going to, up in the corner, make a square and try to get a nice solid color. If you can get rid of the paper so you can only see bright color, that's great. And I'm going to label this wash. All right. All right, so I have a wash here. It's just one solid color. That's probably what you've probably used watercolor before. That's kind of what you're used to. All right, so now we're going to do a gradient. I'm going to start by having some regular paint. I'm going to make a thin rectangle right here. So it'll look very similar to the wash. Instead of going back to the paint, I'm going to give this a little wipe. I'm going to go get some water. Now I wiped off my paintbrush a little bit to get rid, because I don't want this crazy watery. But I did add just water. So I painted that. You can see it's a little lighter. I'm going to go and get some more water. And each time I add water, it should get gradually lighter. Now, if you have, right now I have a drop of water on my paintbrush, and it's probably going to make a big puddle. What I can do is take my paintbrush and squeeze it with my fingers, and that'll take some of the water out. And I can go back in and actually suck some of the paint off the paper. All right, so I'll do one more. Dip my brush back in the water. This is very similar to what we did with the value scales with the drawing. All right, so I'm going to write here paint and do a greater than sign. So the paint, there's more paint. And over here, I'm going to do a greater than sign and, well, yeah, for the water. So it starts off, there's lots of paint, and it goes to lots of water. Okay, so the next part I'm going to do I think it's called a gradient wash. So I'm going to start with straight paint. I'm going to do one of the similar rectangle stuff up here. Really clean paint. Now, just like up here, I'm going to, instead of going to the paint, I'm going to go to the water. I'm going to add to this. You can kind of move the paint around a little bit. All right, so I'm going to again go back to the water. And each time I go to the water, I'm wiping my brush off a little bit on the side of the container. So it looks like this. Just a little bit. So I don't have huge puddles. And each time I just add a little more water to the brush and to the paper instead of more paint. That's going to slowly get lighter and lighter. And again, each time I go in for a little more water, I just wipe it on the side here, just so I don't have a humongous puddle. All right, and you do want to, when you get to the end, be able to see it. So I'll do one more. All right. And so down at the bottom of this, I'm going to write gradients. All right. Next step, I'm going to do dry brush. So I'm going to take the paint. My brush is kind of dry. I want it to be kind of smudgy, spongy. I want to be able to see some of the texture of the paper. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm holding it like this rather than like this. So I'm holding it at an angle and kind of smear the paint. So you can see that sort of broken line. That's the dry brush. All right. Next, we've got what I'm. All right. So the next step, I'm going to leave some paint on my brush so you can see it. You're going to want to wash your brush out really well, squeeze the extra paint off of it, go back in until your brush has nothing but water on it. And again, I want you to be able to see this, so I'm going to leave some of the paint in my brush. You're going to have this just plain, clean water. So you don't want to see this on your paper, aside from like the shininess of the paper being wet. All right. I'm going to try to pull off some of that. So I'm just squeezing out the extra liquid from my brush, so that way we don't have these huge puddles. All right. So now I'm going to dip into the paint, and I can draw in this box, and the paint's going to move around, which will keep it from, you won't be able to see really clean lines, which if you're doing a sky or water or something, you're not going to want to see lines. So it's a good technique for not seeing lines when you work. All right. So that's going to be wet on wet. All right. The next one was bleed. So I'm going to do the same thing so you can see what I'm doing. I'll have kind of a dirty brush. You want to have nothing but clean water here. And I'm just going to make some circles on my paper again. You want to do this with plain, clean water. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go into the paint, and I'll get some clean lines. So I'll start off of the little circles I did here, and I'm going to draw into them. So you'll see I can get clean lines, and then it bleeds out. Clean lines, out, lines, out. So you have the ability to make really nice sharp lines, but also have lines that are really soft. So this is bleed. All right, and that is it.